What's up, y'all? You are watching another episode of The Mindsetters, and I'm here once again with my beautiful lipstick ladies, Charlene Ruiz and Carmen Smith. Charlene, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having me again, Miss Lorraine. I'm so honored to be here on The Mindsetters. My name's Charlene Ruiz, and I am a lender here in Las Vegas, actually nationally, for a long time. I'm also a coach and a fitness coach, and I love to speak wisdom and speak truth, and that's why I'm here on this show. If you guys like what we're saying and want to hear more about what we're talking about, want to learn more about me, you can find me on Instagram at sruiz.cmps at Instagram.
Awesome. And Carmen, what about you, lovely lady?
Hi, I'm Carmen Smith, your local real estate agent. There's houses for sale. I can sell you a house. You can buy a house.
How do they find you?
I just screwed that all the way up. I could list your house. You could buy a house. You could find me on Instagram at CarmenSmith_realtor.
Thank you. And I am Lorraine Lindsay, affectionately known as Lolo or Coach Lorraine Lindsay. You can find me at www.coachlorrainelindsay.com. You can also follow me at Coach Lorraine Lindsay on Instagram. So here we are, ladies, once again. But before we get started, I do want to make a special announcement. For those of you that don't know, I'm also a public speaker. Matter of fact, I was so proud. My first speaking competition, I got like second place for the ultimate speaking competition. Anyways, I've been invited to speak for a specific event with the Unsilent Voices organization. This event will be taking place July 22nd at Bears Best Country Golf Club. All of the proceeds for these tickets will be going towards survivors of domestic abuse and domestic violence. And it also is giving money back to those who are victims of human trafficking. So I am a featured speaker. You know, domestic violence and abuse is something that is very near and dear to my heart. I am a survivor of those things. So I will be there to speak, and I would love your support. If you are interested, there is a link, which is www.unsilentvoices.org. You click that link and you can get more information. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, here we are talking about something that I feel is incredibly important. And by the way, if you love what we are talking about, I do ask for you to subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. If you like our content today, please give us the thumbs up. And also, we love your comments. So tell us what you think about the show. Give us ideas. Ask questions. Tell us what topics you want to hear from us. We definitely want to hear from you. And we always love this continued support. All right. So moving on, ladies. We are here to talk about the steps to achieving self-love. And I think we actually talked about this topic on our previous show when we were doing the show before, but we found that it was super important to come back and talk about it again, because a lot of the things that we go through in our lives are a reflection of how much we actually love and care about ourselves, or how we understand our own worth and our own value. So we're going to talk about that today. There was a post that I had posted not long ago, and it said this. It said, one day, I decided I was going to choose me, and I haven't looked back since. So we were talking about this, and I think it was Carmen had come up with she had read this article recently. The article, if you will post it on there for you guys to see. It was the 13 steps to achieving total self-love. It was published on Healthline. So if you want to read the whole article, please look at that. You can go and find it, subscribe to their thing. But we're going to use a couple of their steps because we felt that they were really relevant. And we're going to talk about that a little bit here today on The Lipstick Ladies. So here we go.
Exciting.
Number one, ladies, putting yourself first. How important is it when we talk about self-love and self-worth that we take the time to put ourselves first? Why is that important? Charlene, Carmen?
Okay. Well, for me, the first thing I hear when I see put myself first is, if my house is not in order, I can't help anybody else's house be in order, right? If I don't put myself first and take care of me, how am I going to give into someone else's life or provide the best of who I am for them? Oftentimes we hear put myself first and we think it's selfish, right? But selfish is okay. I mean, we have to be selfish in life, and we have to do things for self first so that we can deliver upon that. Putting myself first means betting on me. Putting myself first doesn't mean I'm going to get mine, so I'm going to take yours. It means I'm here for me, and I'm going to do what I need to do to progress in my life and help others on the way there too. That's what I believe putting myself first is about.
What
Yeah.
about you?
I agree. Putting yourself first is taking accountability for who you are as a person in society. Like, if I take care of me, I'm a better mother, I'm a better friend, I'm a better wife if I'm a wife. I have been a wife, not anymore, but I'm a better.
You'd be a great wife.
Gotta put yourself first, girl.
Right. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not a wife anymore. Okay. but putting, because especially being a wife, you lose yourself in that sometimes, and you lose yourself in your kids, and you tend to put, it's easy to put our children first. And if our children are first, when they're gone, we're left not knowing who we are.
I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Absolutely.
Actually.
Now that you said that, opens up a whole nother answer for me
Right.
too, because that's true in life. We have these stages, even in friendships. Sometimes we honor the friendship before ourselves, or our relationships, or our parents, or our kids, and that's true. Absolutely, absolutely.
So my journey has been that, realizing that, and sometimes we do get selfish, and it's like, I think you got to give yourself permission every now and then to be selfish, as long as your intentions are to be better for society,
Exactly.
for the world, for
Exactly.
your
And I
family.
think there's a fine line, right? Because a lot of people, when they think of, I got to love myself first, they think of it as being some form of narcissism. And, for me, when I'm being selfish in the sense of, maybe a narcissistic type of way or in an insecure kind of way, in that selfishness, I guess, it's more like, I'm going to do me, but what can you do for me also?
Right.
Whereas with a reflection of self-love, when you're really loving yourself, what I have understood, I've come to understand in my own self-love is understanding my worth and my value. Number one, it raises my standards, right? And number two, I realized that I can't pour into somebody something that I don't have.
Yes.
So if I am not loving myself first, I can't expect to be loved. How do you identify love if you don't love yourself first? So I feel like the first expression of that, of self-love, is so important for you to really connect to the right kind of people, right? Because then it becomes like a give as opposed to a give and take,
Yeah.
or take and give and whatever.
Agree.
There's a book that I'm reading actually right now. It's called The 80-20 Principle. And I love this book, okay? It has a lot of corporation and business stuff, but it also talks about us as people. And, it talks about like a 20%, in theory, 20% of what we put into is what we're getting results out of. So we think sometimes that we put a lot of energy and work into all these different things, but really it's the smaller things that we do where we're getting output. And here's one thing that I found about understanding self-worth and self-love is that we often put a lot of energy and work into things that don't support us and our love for ourselves. Like a toxic relationship or toxic friendships or jobs that we hate. We'll literally dump all the energy into that. And then we wonder why the results of our life are so in disarray, or we feel so distraught or despondent all the time. But I do want to put up this quote real quick, and then I kind of want you ladies to speak on it. This is actually from the book. So this quote says this. It says, our lives are profoundly affected for good and ill by a few events and a few decisions. The few decisions are often taken by default rather than conscious choice. So in other words, it's saying we let life happen to us rather than shaping our lives. So what do you all think about that? It's deep, right?
It is very deep. I could share a story. I'm going to try to make a really long story short. And I shared it with you ladies before, but my journey through self-love, being in a dark place and meeting a person, mine are always matters of my heart. When my heart is broken, I'm a mess. But I was in a really dark place, and getting into a relationship with somebody, it kind of pulled me out of that dark place. And I'm like, oh, he saved me. Like, I'm saved, And going through this relationship that lasted 10 months. And when we broke up, I was right back in that situation of grief and pain, and then going through COVID, having to be still and dealing with my shit. And it's like, I put my expectation on this person to take my shit. And if I would have somebody come to me and say, Carmen, you're my savior, take all my shit and fix me, that's crazy. So learning to love myself, just how the quote said, was like, I was allowing things to shape my life because of my experience of my pain, not wanting to deal with it, putting the expectation on other people to heal or fix me instead of just digging into myself and talking to God and talking to myself and making those things right. And then forgiving myself and taking accountability for it. Like, you're selfish. I had to look at myself and then be grateful in that to say, God showed me who I am. I'm being selfish. I'm expecting somebody to save me. And it was my process for making my life better versus having my life dictate, all the grief or whatever I've been through in my life to shape in my life.
Well, I think to your point, Carmen, like, I think that self-love is also accountability.
Right.
Like, we participate in our lives, right? So anything could be happening to us, but we're also happening with it. We're participating in some facet. And of course, I'm not talking about like, tragic things that happen to people that are outside of their control. But even when we have tragic things happen in our lives, we also get to choose how we are going to show up in those things. And those things, so I want to set that aside, but I mean, like, as far as like the dramas or the disappointments or the frustrations we have out of life, part of self-love is being able to say, okay, well, how am I participating? What was the vibration? And so, like, similar to your story, there was a time in a past relationship of mine where I was going through a lot emotionally. I was dealing with some family issues. Someone was very sick. And when I met this person, they were an escape. They were a distraction for what was bothering me in my life and what was really, it was a very difficult time. Someone was very, very sick. And I found I was at a very low vibration in my life. And not to take away from that person because they were giving me their all, I just wasn't all the way available. So when that relationship became toxic and became a problem, at the time, it's like, no, he's supposed to be the person that's making me feel better.
And
I became the victim instead of saying, well, you attracted this person at a very low vibrating time in your life. So like attracts like, that's where I was. And it wasn't going to matter. It didn't matter how much he was going to pour into me. It was never going to be enough just because I wasn't in the right state of mind. Did you want to say something about?
No, that's like attract like. You said the vibration. It's true. How we show up is what we'd attract. I mean, sometimes we don't even realize that about ourselves.
Right.
We're in that space, and sometimes it takes for us to be in the space of this people that are in the same space for us to get out of that space and say, hey, wait a minute. I'm there too. I need to get out because I'm not going to grow here. I'm not going to heal. Or you have people that are all trying to have expectations on each other and nobody can do anything for one another because they're all in the same space and position.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, in relationships, even in careers, I mean, I could see that being, people putting their worth in their boss's opinion and their validation and their numbers and their sales and how much they make a year, whatever. Those things, they matter because they're important. It depends on what kind of life you want to live, but that doesn't make your worth. It doesn't, you have to put yourself and your whys before anything else. But to the point, I think we all kind of go through dark places and find our way out so that we can be that light constantly. We're searching for that light, showing up in that position. And the more we're in tune with who we are, the less those things happen, or they happen in a different way.
And also, too, I think that we all have light and darkness to us. We're all going to go through things in life. So I feel like when I'm a ray of light and I feel in a good space, I don't mind to be the light for someone else's darkness, but I also need to be clear when I'm in a dark space to look for the light. And a lot of times when we're in the darkness, we look for more darkness. We invest in it. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like, oh, my life is broken. Oh, I'm sad, or I'm never going to have a good person to love me. And we start to give these negative mantras to ourselves, and we start to attract those things because at the end of the day, you're not going to make yourself a liar. If you believe you're a broken person, or if I had someone tell me, I coach people, and I remember one person I was coaching recently, he said to me, I'm an avoider. I just avoid things. And I said, is that what you believe? And he's like, no, that's the truth. I avoid. And he feels as though that's something that's protecting him. And so I said, well, just so you know, when you make the decision to be an avoider, life will avoid you. It doesn't matter what it is. All of life will avoid you. So we are going to have to change that narrative. And we're going to have to see how that could play out differently for your life. So I want to move on to the next thing, which is, being kind to yourself as a form of self-love. Ooh, we don't even realize how difficult this is.
Being kind.
What
I
would
think
you?
at a
Let's
cer-
give some
Being
examples
kind.
of being kind to yourself, and maybe give an example when you were being unkind.
I could give an example of being hard on myself because
Okay, let's hear
that's
it.
how I thrive sometimes. Or being hard on I know I could do better. I know I could do better. I could be better. But is that good or bad? No. I mean, depends on where I'm going with that, right? If I'm stuck in that place, or is it going to propel me to be that next level that I'm trying to go? That's being hard on myself. Is that being unkind to me? I don't know if it's unkind that I'm hard on myself always, because that's that fuel that I need because I know I can and I need to get there. So Charlene, you're not showing up at your best, girl. You know you could do better than that. What? Let's go. That's being hard on myself. Some people would see that as being unkind. Me being
Can you
unkind
think
is
of a time when you were like literally unkind with yourself?
I can think of a lot of times that I was unkind to myself. I mean, when I wasn't, first of all, taking care of myself, I feel my self-care in my physical, emotional, my spiritual is bar none. And when I lack that, I'm being unkind to me.
That's true.
Because I feel depleted and I feel my energy is just sucked out of me. So I have to regroup. And once you know what it feels like, I think it's easier for you to find a way back there. When you don't know because that's your environment and that's all you're around, and how do you know what kindness is and isn't if that's what
Right.
you're around, right? So once we find that light, we can see different. We can continue to hold on to that. But kindness can be, I mean, I'm a kind person always to myself. I'm hard on myself, but I don't know if I would say that it's unkind.
I think you can.
think
I
it
think you can be
motivates
too,
Yeah.
but I think you can be too hard on yourself. I think that when we are overly self-criticizing ourselves, it's a reflection of not being enough. And I think that when you feel as though you're not enough, in ways that we may not even be aware, we start to sabotage, right? And it may not show up in evident ways. For example, people will look at me, the perception is like, okay, Lorraine's got her head together and she's successful and she's doing this and she's doing this. And they wouldn't realize how hard I am on myself, to the point where there are times where I don't even want to get out of bed, or I beat myself up over a project that I'm not completing, or I'll literally spread myself too thin because
And it's funny how much time we take beating ourselves up
but maybe that's
versus
what we
doing
need
the
to do.
action.
We have to feel those emotions. We have to feel the darkness. Is that being unkind because we're letting ourselves feel?
I don't think it's bad to feel emotions and pain. I think it is what you tell yourself and how you attach yourself to it.
When you get stuck there.
Yeah.
Right.
When you're okay.
Because
You have-
it's necessary. It's a necessary thing. If you don't have sorrow, you will never appreciate joy, period. So it is necessary for you to embrace pain, but it's to embrace it as opposed
to
to
trying to, okay.
let it be an anvil in your life
Yeah.
where it's like, this pain is so bad, I'm never going to get out, and you become a zombie to the pain. Tony Robbins said it perfectly. He said there's a difference between pain and suffering.
Yeah.
And the sentence is, this is what I thought my life was going to be like, and it didn't turn out that way. That is pain. Suffering says, this is how my life was supposed to be. It didn't turn out that way, and I feel powerless. Okay? So that's the difference between saying, okay, shit happens.
You said it right
move
there.
on. Or shit happens and I keep stepping in shit and everywhere I look, shit stinks. And
And
look, there's a
shit,
cow
shit,
that's
shit.
shitting over there, and there's a thing that's, and look, there's flies
all
on
you
shit
see
on
is
shit. Yeah.
So unkindness is having a lack of your own power, is giving your power away,
It's
losing
giving
your
your power
power.
away.
That makes sense
I think
to me.
unkindness is suffering.
Could we make this a little more simple?
Yeah, simplify. Come on, Carmen.
Sorry.
I
Let's not
buy
be so
myself
deep.
flowers.
Oh yes.
I love
buy
that.
myself
Of course,
flowers.
yes.
I forgive myself.
Forgiveness.
I let myself be angry if I want to be angry. If I want to be sad, I give myself time to be sad. And then I say, okay, you're done. Get over yourself. And back to some of your points, affirmations, when we write affirmations, there are things that we're lacking that we have to tell ourselves we're good at. So if we learn to write affirmations, we'll know the things that are our hindrance or our downfalls, you know? But just being kind is like, girl, it's okay. You know, every now and then
yeah.
you just gotta. It's okay. You failure. You gotta fail to succeed. It's okay. It's okay. You had a bad day.
And I
You
think
can
you-
still have self-love even if you're unkind to yourself. And maybe my mind is thinking,
See, I don't think so.
I do.
Why?
I
Okay.
do. Well, because we're being unkind, but we know what loving ourselves is. So we have to know what that is first, right? So not loving myself would be like, I feel like shit, so I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm just going to stay there. That's not, it's being unkind, but it's also not doing anything different, right? You're stuck there and there's no out. There's no, what can I do to
But
get
if
better?
you're doing something about whatever it is, then you're being kind. If you're, because I get, maybe we're defining unkind, because to me, I interpret unkind like I made a mistake in my life and I'm never going to, how am I ever going to overcome this? I'm
Or
not good
so
enough.
Ugly. I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Or I'm too old now. I
Yeah.
can't do that career. Or
That's not loving yourself.
well, that's what
That's
we're
not
saying.
being
That's what
kind
we're saying.
either.
Those are
Okay.
examples of being unkind. Not necessarily kicking yourself in the butt and motivating yourself, but literally kicking yourself down when you're already down. Creating those conversations. Unkind is when you feel like you have failed, okay, and then you go to the people who reassure your failures. Sometimes kindness to yourself says, you know what, I'm feeling down.
I need
I
to
feel
process
I've made a
this.
mistake. This marriage didn't work. This relationship didn't work. My kids are angry with me. I'm not a good enough mother. I can't be a mother and a wife. And you're beating yourself up. I'm exhausted. I'm trying to be this. I'm trying to be that. And then you go to talk to the friends who have the same situation, and they're like, "Yeah, girl, me too." And then they're building that, and then they're building that up. That's unkind. Whereas if I say to myself, yes, today I'm exhausted. Yes, I feel like I'm not being the mother I could be or the wife I could be, or I'm afraid that I'm getting too old to have this career. And I'm reflecting on that and I acknowledge that. And then I say, okay, but what's the one thing I could do today or in this moment just to shift that just a little? And I think that's what it means to be kind to yourself.
Okay. Being unkind could be deflecting the problem. Could
Oh, for
be
sure.
instead of dealing with it, let me go party, let me go hang out, let me go kick
Oh,
you,
sure.
whatever.
I can
That's a
deflect,
big one.
honey.
That's because you know that there's something
Yeah.
deep inside
It's
of you.
sabotaging.
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
Unkind, being sabotaging.
Yeah.
Deflection. Mhm.
Yeah.
Maybe I needed that
I think there's
word.
stages in life though that we feel that way. Maybe today for me, maybe I've been through that earlier on that it doesn't really, I don't feel that word powerful to me right
Okay.
now. But if I
That's
think
fair.
back to my 20s, yeah, lots of times because there was things I did that I probably shouldn't have done. And it made me better because I learned from that. But in that moment, I wasn't really loving myself.
Okay.
You know, I wasn't kind to myself or anybody in my life, you know, because,
right.
you
Well,
know,
when you're not kind to yourself,
It reflects
Mm-hmm.
on.
you'll find yourself being unkind to other people, and then you'll beat yourself up about it later, even if they never know. And I've done that where I was I was not loving myself enough, and so I was in relationships where I was mean, and I was being a bully, or I was being the aggressor or an antagonist, and the villain. I was the villain, and it was really because I wasn't loving myself, and so I was finding an subconscious way of pushing people out of my
hurt
life.
people hurt people.
Correct. So let's move on to the
Yeah.
next point because we've got a few points here.
Yeah, I like that.
So the next one says, which kind of goes, I think, along with kindness, but allow yourself to make mistakes. You know, a lot of people have a hard time allowing themselves to make mistakes. And the crazy thing about it is you're going to make them.
Yeah.
I always tell my son, you know, one of the things that I try to instill in him is fail and fail often. That is, as a young man, that is your sole responsibility. Because if you're failing and failing often, I know that you're trying.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you fix if you don't fail, right? Anytime I've been afraid to do something, I literally will sit on it. But the moment, even from the podcast, if we look at we were just talking about our old podcast shows in my living room, the sound was whatever. If I didn't first start that,
Exactly.
we wouldn't be here in a professional studio with lights and sound and all this good stuff. And then each time it gets a little bit better. But, you know, can you guys relate to the mistake thing?
Yeah.
The allowing yourself. Do you allow yourself to make mistakes? And have you always?
No, I'm queen of beat myself up. I will be hard on myself, beat myself up, but I'm learning to, instead of beating myself up, take the lesson from it and try to process through it and say, what was the mistake? What could I do different next time? How could I be better next time? So I love what Nipsey Hussle said about people are experiences and everything in life has to be an experience.
Amen.
And you just take that experience and try to elevate yourself through it. And yes, I am very forgiving of myself now.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you, Charlene, I'll gear this towards you or either of you ladies. Because as you were saying something, regrets and then mistakes, right? So allowing yourself to make mistakes, but what about how do you forgive yourself when it's a regret? And I'll give an example of a regret.
Okay, please. Yeah.
Let's say my significant other goes out of the house, and I know that I love this person, and I never told them that I love them, and I feel like I want to tell them I love them, and they leave out the door, and I'm like, I should have said I love you, right? And I made a mistake. And let's say they break up with me. They're like, you never told me you loved me. And I'm like, oh, I feel like I made a mistake, but I can fix that. A regret would be the same scenario, but only the person leaves out of the door and they drop dead. And then you're like, I'm never going to have the opportunity.
Yeah.
I know that's such a dramatic example, but how do we forgive ourselves for things that we regret?
So regret is something that you can never fix.
You can't go back and fix
and
it.
it's always going to be something that, because regret to me is very hard.
It's hard.
It's harsh. It's like
Okay,
that.
so
it's like the hate word that I
how
don't
do
like.
you love yourself enough to let a regret go?
Because I'm learning from it. I have to learn from it. Everything, as to Nipsey's point, is a lesson. Everything is a lesson. My bad times, my good times, even my failures are lessons for me. Otherwise, why the hell am I here? I have to. That's the way I think I get through things and I grow and I can be kind to myself, is by finding the lesson in that. And if I don't know what the lesson is, I pray for discernment. That's my prayer. Please show me discernment. Let me learn what this is I'm supposed to learn. If I don't know, I find it and I hold on to that.
If you regret it, has there
I'm
ever
trying
been
to think of a regret that in my stomach, like
where
what
you're
that would
like,
be.
I wish, like I look back and there's nothing I can do about this, and I can't take it back.
Perhaps certain, I guess, chapters of my marriage, certain chapters of my child growing up, but I see today where that evolved to. Could I done it better? Heck yeah. There's a lot of things I could have done differently that would have turned out in a different way, but we don't know that. I don't know that. So for me, regretting is living in the past, and I don't really stay there.
Okay,
So
that's a good
yeah.
point, though. Or were you going to say
Yeah.
something, Carmen?
Regret.
This is good though, because I feel like a lot of people who are watching out there, they have like, okay, I've made mistakes, but there's things I just regret, and it's hard.
This is a hot topic.
Is this-
over here.
Talk
Yeah.
about it if you don't mind.
Because I just have one. My dad.
Yeah. Okay.
Are you comfortable to talk about it?
I probably can't.
I'm sorry, but I gotta give you.
No, I'm okay.
No, I can't.
She's like-
I'm sorry.
No,
Yeah.
just the time is gone.
Right. So recently Carmen had lost her father, and yeah, I'm sorry. I but it's important that we talk about these things, because I think we
And we can learn from that.
can learn from
I'm learning
it.
from that.
So what are
for
you
sure.
doing with, if you don't mind sharing, to help you day by day? I know it's one of those things where you can only eat the elephant one bite at a time, but how do you cope with it day by day? And, saying, okay, well, there's certain things I wish I could have done. How can you get through that?
I mean, I know I can get through it, but it's just things you can't fix.
Yeah.
And not so much, I was the best person I thought I could be at the time, but thinking back, it's like, God, I could have been better. I could have been nicer. I could have been. And you just can't get it back.
It's tough.
But I wasn't a bad daughter, but those were the experiences we had as, my dad.
Can I can share to that. I'm not close to my father either. He has Parkinson's. He's in Florida. I'm going to go see him. I haven't talked to him in a really long time because of these moments. But at the same time, I know why there's a distance between he and I. Is it going to hurt? And I'm not in any way comparing to you, but I understand. And I'm learning from that from you because of what you're going through. It makes me realize, regardless, that's still my father. And even if we have a relationship or not, he's important to me, whether I love him from afar or not. But he needs to be where he's at. I need it because I can't have him in my life here. It would not be a good thing for me and my family.
Yeah.
So whatever decisions we make is because we believe that's what we need to make in that moment. So I mean, granted, you're mourning and it's fresh, and I won't even put words there because I've never experienced that, and truly I feel that. But to give some,
I will
guess-
say this.
We need
As
makeup,
I know, makeup, please.
please. No, we're not there yet. Next time.
Yeah. We're getting there. I will say this though, because as you're speaking, I am digesting and I'm thinking of what would be the most appropriate thing to say. And I think this is where the self-love is actually, this is where it's really profound, is the ability to forgive yourself.
It's a human emotion. It's a human thing. It was taught. It was learned behavior. It was our relationship. So I don't regret, I was there for my dad in the end. He was
Yes.
with me. But there's just, when you realize you have no time left with somebody,
Right.
it's like, whew. that's it.
Yeah.
And
So
that-
every
yeah.
moment is
Yeah.
important. You never know if you know, and I think those are the hardest. That's the only true regrets.
But you love
Mistakes-
him. That's why you
Oh
feel
yeah,
that.
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
There's no question.
Yeah.
And I think too that when we have regrets like that, again, and I'm going to be repetitive here, but just being able to say, you know, there are things that I woulda, shoulda, coulda, and to really look at the dynamics of who you were at the time,
Mhm.
what that relationship was at different times, and to really see, because I like, for example, I know you pour yourself into people, and especially your father. Like your father, and the way he left was such a beautiful thing because of his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a matter of just sometimes saying, you know, I regret things, and I recognize that there's certain things I won't get back. I can't change. However,
It's giving you so much.
Yeah.
what
Yes.
can I learn from the
Yes.
life that I still have? Because I'm still here.
Yes.
So
yes.
if I'm still here and I regret that, what can I do to change those things, and in the process learn to forgive myself, knowing I can't get that back?
Yeah.
So
The lesson is just, you know, how you go on to treat other people or your parents, you know, that are living, and just the people that everybody's going to go,
right.
realizing the mortality of
Right.
life.
per
so,
our last.
Yeah, you have
Yeah.
to take every moment with people, and just people you love. And it's like, God is love. That's it. Like, if we love ourselves, love the people around us, like, imagine what the world would be like.
And we have to
You
to know our abundance. Our abundance is different at different times in our lives.
Mhm.
There have been times when in just different people where I didn't have an understanding of myself. Maybe I had a rift with a person, or that I felt they were hurt, and that became more important than my abundance of loving them. And so we pour into people different at different times in our lives, thinking we have forever, right?
Yeah.
And it's not that our intentions are to be hurtful. It's just that we think we have forever. And sometimes we're just hurting, and we mistreat people because we feel mistreated by them. And so when you realize and you come to the end of life, so to speak, in this situation, you go look back and you think these things. But to your point, Charlene, it's like there's a lot of things in our lives that we can regret. And again, the regret is things that we can't take back. But we only have right now,
Mhm.
you know, and we can reflect on it and say, what did I learn? What is the mistake that I made, or the regret that I have that I no longer want to live with, and invest in that.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of
Right.
other people, make that your investment.
And choose to see the best in people, even if they're not showing up that way. Especially if they had any significance to your life, whether it was for a moment, a year, 5 years, or forever. Because I think no matter what, there's going to be that memory that's there. Whether you want to hold on to the good or bad, there's something, and it mattered to you. So that's how I try to live my life every day. And I mean, I'm human too, and I certainly hurt, but to get over that hurt and to remember that person's just like me. They have a heart, but there's something going on with them that they're behaving that way. I don't believe that that's their spirit, but their behavior is showing up in a way that I just can't tolerate or want to be around, because it's not good for my self-love or my
Right.
peace or my, purpose. But I love them as people because that's what I want to do. I choose that. I'm choosing
Right.
that because it makes me a better person
That's your
to believe
self-love.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. So I want to move on because we have a few more talking points. We only have a little bit more time. So I want to go to the next one, which is processing your fear. And, I wrote this thing a while ago. This is a few years back now. And, there's always this thing that tells us to, battle your fear, conquer your fear. And what I've learned in my life, at least, is that my fear is actually my little child inside of me. It is the person in me that never grew up.
Mhm.
And that person is really making a lot of choices for my life. And I'll give you an example. I remember, when I was 10 years old, I lost a parent to suicide. And I remember the feeling of abandonment at the time. But also I felt like it was my fault. And I thought it was my fault because as a 10-year-old child, I told my father that I had a dream that he died. And he took me to the park on the swing, and he's swinging me on the swing, and I kick him, and he fell. And I thought that by the next weekend, he took his life. So I thought, well, if I didn't tell him about the dream and I didn't kick him, he wouldn't hurt so much that he took his life. And it was, I didn't have the cognition at the time. And I'm not telling this story as a somber story, because I'm in a different space in that story. So I can tell it from an elevated area. I'm not stuck in that story. But for a long time, unbeknownst to me, the fear of getting close to somebody and them leaving me so abruptly was so embedded in my mind that I pushed people away. And it took me to go back to the 10-year-old little girl. So instead of being this angry woman or this sabotaging woman or this woman that pushed people out, it was really a matter of saying the fear is all the way down here, like to the level of a child, and me to literally get down on my knees, like literally, I literally was by myself, picturing myself as a 10-year-old and getting down to that level and having a conversation with her and saying, I'm sorry I haven't been listening all these years. What is it exactly you're afraid of? Because I, the grown adult person, needed to tell the little child in me, you're going to be just fine. And I needed to have a conversation with her, the same conversation that I needed when I was literally 10 years old. Now I can talk to her about it. And we're not always going to get healing from other people, outside people that we want our healing from. But sometimes the adult version of yourself can go back to the little kid version of yourself and just have those conversations. And so I look at fear when I say to process your fear. I've learned to be more, to listen more to what I'm afraid of, and not to try to fight it or subdue it, but to just really take a pause and say, well, what exactly is the fear? Is it that you don't feel enough? Is it that you don't belong? Is it that you feel alone? What is really going on? And let's talk about it. Like literally, Lorraine, talk to the little girl. Think about the story when you first felt that way and have a conversation. And that's how I personally process my fears. And I don't always execute greatly. Sometimes the little kids are at the playground and they're going crazy.
But you're doing the work and you've done the work. Some people can't even comprehend what you just said right now, because that's work that your purpose, whatever you went through as a little girl, got you here.
Well, because you get tired. I got tired.
Yes.
The work came with me being tired of me. Forget about everybody else. Everybody in my life, I was attracting them. My relationships, certain friendships I was having, these are all people that I said, here's the door, come on in. And when I realized that I opened the door and made and sent the invitation and these people showed up, I got sick of me. Because I'm like, okay, you need to upgrade your party. You need to put a lock on the door. Everyone can't come in. What are you so afraid of that you're surrounding yourself with all these people that are here to come help you? Because that's what they're
Save
doing.
you.
When they challenge you, there's something in your little kid that they're coming to, their little kid is coming to play with your little kid. And we're going to fall off the monkey bars and break some arms. And so that's what, and I got tired of it, you know? Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm rambling.
No, that's good.
'Cause
That's
when
really
you-
good. 'Cause
when
it's
you-
true.
Can see who you are in the mirror, like so many times we're like, I'm great, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I'm that, and everybody's like, oh, you're this, you're that, and you start believing it, and it's like, but I'm not.
And then you secretly, yeah.
And it's like, well, why aren't you? Why haven't you elevated to that level you want to? Are you afraid of
or
success?
are you,
or are
and you
you
just
afraid
don't
of
believe that you are?
that too? But just that whole, like, I'm hard on myself. I beat myself up because I feel like I can be doing better, being better. But
Do you ladies think that you process your fears? Do you have it at the forefront and process it?
When I feel it, I ask myself those questions, because my fear comes in here. Because I could,
You know where you feel it in your body. Yeah.
In my head, I'm always in my head. So my fear doesn't come here. It's like, okay, if I'm thinking something, I feel it here. If I'm experiencing something, I feel there's something I need to deal with.
That's interesting you say that,
Yes.
not to cut you off, but when I coach people actually and they're telling me something, I always want to know, where do you feel it in your body? Because there's a physiological component to our thought process. So if I can get them to really feel it in their body and then get it to shift, it's crazy how it shifts their thinking, how they perceive a story. Because it's just stories we're telling each other and how we perceive an incident, right?
yeah,
You were
I was just gonna say that, like, our thoughts create our emotions, and I've been learning to, like, try to focus on my thoughts a lot. And if something I'm fearful about, or I try to think about it before I react, or anything. I try to think about it first before I have that outburst or whatever it is, like, locking myself in a room if I feel like I want to
And I'll be
hurt
honest to say
somebody.
that physical fitness helps me. It helps break down a lot, because our emotions are in our body and they stay in there. So when we start to break down our body and get clean and clear and become more comfortable with who we are, because we know ourselves, that helps so many other things too. I mean, there is truth that issues are in the tissues, right? You know, that's just the way to get to your emotional strength is through the body. I mean, somatic therapy, there's all kinds of different ways to do that. It's real, it's truthful. 'Cause
Yeah.
we can choose to think a certain way. I mean, we can do that. We have that ability. So we can choose to dismiss a feeling or we can choose to dive into that. But sometimes we feel it and we just choose not to feel it and do other things to distract that feeling. So it's a choice just
Yeah.
as much as anything else.
It's hard though. It's sometimes
is.
hard. What about trusting yourself as the next little thing? Trust
That
yourself. That
gut
is such a
feeling.
big part of self-love, and it is something I think a lot of us do not do often enough. And so I'll give an example just for people who are listening. You know, like we've all been in situations where you had a knower, your little knower inside knew better, whether it's that relationship you got into, whether it's that job you took that you really didn't want because you just needed the money, or whatever the situation. There's that knowing, you know. I've even heard you have such a strong intuition where like you're going down a street and something tells you don't go down that street, and then you follow the instinct, and then you hear like later, oh my God, like if I would have went down that street, like literally there was an accident and it would have been me. So how do you get yourself to be more trusting of yourself as a form of self-love?
Being in tune with, you know, like having those self-talk is huge. Like I probably talk to myself more than I talk to anybody else, you know, just learning who you are as a person. And I trust my gut now. Like I might have questioned it before, but I'd rather be wrong trusting my gut than right trusting somebody else. So if my gut says something is off, it's off.
Yeah.
You can't convince me otherwise. And then, you know, admitting like I want to trust my thoughts as much as I would take, or I want to be able to trust me. Because if you ask me to do something for you, I'm going to do it for you, you know, but I want to show up for myself like that too. I want to trust myself like that too and make myself accountable to that.
Because you take responsibility for yourself.
Right.
And it's a self thing. I
Right.
think with trusting it depends on what it is. Like sometimes if I don't blindly do much. I mean, I'm very calculated in my decisions. That's just my personality. But if sometimes I have to like know nothing and take a leap of faith,
Right.
I really got to learn how to trust myself. And it doesn't happen very often, but I'm going to bank on, again, what am I feeling?
Well,
What am I feeling?
I've been
Yeah.
a person like that where I leap. It's swampland over here. I'll buy it. You know,
Yeah.
that was me. Like whatever. You tell me it's a good deal, you
Yeah.
know. So I'm learning that, like, to step back and really learn to trust my intuition and trust, you know, my own research.
And you can't
get my
trust
own-
yourself in a sense that you talk yourself out of everything. I think there's a misconception
yeah.
where people literally will say in their little bubble. I always say, and I wrote this down because as you guys were talking,
overthinking.
it says, think, did I think it, then feel it, or did I feel it, then think it? And I think that a lot of times, because life has a unique way of telling you intuitively about things. So for example, like let's say when I worked in the casino and I'd be at the desk and customers would come up, and let's say the customers were talking to me and they would say something that intrigued me. I would feel excited first before I thought about what to say next. And that was a pull in a direction, right? And then there were things that maybe someone said or a look or there was something weird going on, and I would feel it first before I thought, get out of there. And so I think that's where we're not trusting, because often what we do is we think, and then we create these feelings like, oh, I'm feeling like whatever. Oh my God, I don't know. Because we thought it first. And a lot of times we just need to trust what we feel first and see what the thought that comes with it. Because our life is quietly.
It depends on what
They're
that is too, because I think
simultaneous.
about investing.
Okay.
Like I could be super excited, but if I see it in writing and it doesn't make sense, I'm not doing that. I'm just saying, like I that's trusting. Oh yeah, it sounds like a good deal, but I need to see it. Then I'll
Right.
take that. I mean, so that's a different. I guess I don't know if that's
and that's
the same
something
kind of
learning
trust, but
too. I mean, that's something you just
That'll be a
because of
good
what you
segment
did.
for
Yeah.
another day, because we could speak on that on business. And one of the things, I know, I've been blessed enough to know a lot of very wealthy people, billionaires, and because I've had the opportunity to break bread, with a lot of those people, I always ask them the same things, you know, and. Again, you could see an opportunity looking on a piece of paper. Of course, you want to do your due diligence and you want to cross your T's and dot your I's. But sometimes you just have to just do it. And a lot of those guys and gals have put themselves in that, like, this has
Risk
to
factor.
work. And they're like, I'm going to put myself in a situation where I have no choice but for this to work. And I think
Burn the boats.
you got to burn the boats.
Mhm.
So sometimes we can overthink and over intellectualize, and we mistaken that for intuition.
I also think it goes towards what's my purpose and goal. If am I moving towards my goal or away from my goal, making that decision? There's
Right.
that base point that I have to calculate it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm not loving myself.
But like
you
Steve
know?
Harvey said, you just got to jump sometimes.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
If you feel it, like there are certain things that we just know, and you have to trust yourself and not say, like, there's things like I like a relationship. I know I don't need to be in this relationship, or I know this friendship is toxic, or I know this job is not for me,
Mhm.
and I know it.
But your
I
knowing
know
is your
it.
trust.
But the trust comes when you do something about it,
Mm.
right? Because you can know all day long, but you have to trust to execute what you know. And so if the job is bad, if the relationship is bad, if the friendship is toxic, and I know that, then it's my choice, being that I know, to make to execute that, to make the decision and stick with the decision.
And also trusting that you're going to do whatever it takes to make it work. Because sometimes we know it might be good, but we just don't want to do the work. We're like, if I do that, that means my life is going to look
And
like
that's when you
this.
have to trust
yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
First, say I know this. I'm not talking things that are indecisive. I'm talking about things that you know. We all know there's certain
We
things
know
that
what we know.
just know.
Yes, yes.
But it's, what are you going to do about it? And you have to trust yourself that because you know a thing and you're going to do a thing to support what you know, that everything will be just fine.
And the pressure sometimes makes it. I mean, if you like, I'm quitting my job and
Right.
I retired from, I literally got a hair up my butt one day.
No pun intended. she, was
Right, yeah.
she was doing hair. She got
Yeah,
hair up
no.
her butt.
Yeah.
No more doing
I'm
hair.
like, you know what? Done with it. August 13th, my last day. Like, I just pulled a day out the air.
But that's
I just
trusting
got-
yourself. That,
but
to your
I
point,
trust
yes,
myself.
Correct. Right. Turning
And-
on and off the faucet
yeah.
as you choose because you
And-
have that talent. You know that about yourself.
But, you know, I got to perform.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, I'm working for myself. I don't have
Mhm.
nobody telling me what time to clock in. You know,
And
I have
again,
to
it's
do that.
self-love. When you really trust yourself. For example, as a mother, right? My son trusts me. There's no questions asked. If I say, okay, I'm going to do this, he doesn't even think twice. If I tell him, drink that milk, it's good. And then maybe I'm like, oh crap, maybe I should sip it first. I might have spoiled it in the overnight, you know? But he doesn't care. He doesn't even think twice. Anything we have faith in, we
Yes.
do.
Yes, that's the key right there.
100%.
That's the
So
key.
why not have that faith in yourself? If you know something, sometimes what you know you need to do is a very hard thing, like walking away from a relationship, getting away from toxic people, isolating yourself from, they say you're in a crowd, or whatever, leaving the job.
But it's not always instantaneously.
No,
either.
it's
Yeah,
not. But
yeah.
if you know it,
you work your way
you
to that.
you
yeah.
create the provisions necessary to do it, and it's not easy to do. But if you trust it,
Yes.
if you trust yourself that you know what you know, then you do it. All right, so we're gonna move on because we
Okay.
only got a few more minutes, y'all. All right, so I'm gonna skip over this one. The
Okay.
feel pain and joy as fully as you can.
Feel it.
That's right.
We'll skip over that one. The next one will say, stop comparing yourself to others.
Yep.
Man,
I mean, there's
Charlene,
healthy
my arms don't look
comparison.
as good as your arms, but I haven't put the work in either.
Exactly. So that's the thing. We don't know the stories behind everybody
Yeah.
else's stories, so we can't really compare.
I say this. There is literally not one duplicate person on this
No.
planet. I don't care if you are twins, quadruplets, whatever. We all have our own minds. We all think differently. We all experience life differently. We could literally be sitting here in this room, which we are, and walk away with an entirely different experience, even though it's all happening at the same time. We are so busy comparing ourselves to everybody else when we are so uniquely made. There is literally not another person to put a stamp on you. So why not just do you?
My story I have to tell because I love my friend. So we did a commercial that we didn't appear in.
I appeared for like 2 seconds.
My hair was in it. But anyways, I get my makeup done. She's fabulous. And the other girl that's with us is like plain Jane and she's beautiful. And I'm like, we had to put all this effort and I'm like, I always feel like I need to fit in. And she says, you don't fit in. And I was
I
like,
said that to her.
Mm.
I was,
I don't have to fit in. Like, but
Right.
that's one of my insecurities, and we'll talk about that, you know,
Yeah.
just from child, and I'll go deeper into the
Yeah.
story. But that's something I'm always thinking, not to compare myself or anything, but like I want to look the part, be the part, whatever that is. And when she said it, it was like, why do I have that feeling that I have to fit in? Or what does that even look like, trying to fit in?
Right.
I think sometimes, though, I mean, comparison can be healthy because there's information that we may not have that other people have that we can compare notes and experiences and build on that. Or even in the workplace when, there's straight, feminism and, there's a good old boys club and all that. And you kind of like compare, I'm doing the same job as he is. But I mean, there's certain things that I think comparison is necessary. But when it comes to self and love, no.
Well,
I mean,
think
that's
the
just, I mean,
difference-
that's, you
Comparison
you
or
learn that.
competition?
Yeah,
I think there's healthy competition. I think like when we're looking at other people and we're admiring them, or we look at their work, like, wow, they're doing really well, or we look at someone who's beautiful and we're like, wow, they're really beautiful. What do you do? That kind of thing. That's okay. But I think the comparison is when you're looking at someone saying, I'm never going to be as good as that person, or I'm never going to be as pretty as
In
her,
the
or as
negative aspect, right.
successful.
I can compare notes. I can compare experiences.
But I'm talking about when we're literally like
I'm
saying
looking at
tit for tat, like, look at this person, look at
Right.
me. In even in an egotistical way. Like if I'm like, oh, I'm better than this person. No, you're not. Quit comparing. Just beat to your drum. Stay in your lane.
And for women, I'm just going to speak because I'm a woman. When women look at social media and it's like, oh my God, all these women have these beautiful bodies that they spent thousands of dollars on. Or I could sit here and, and I can go get a fake butt, but then it doesn't look like her fake butt, or I could say, Charlene, your arms are great. I can't stand Charlene. She thinks her arms look good. She's put the work in. I haven't.
Right.
So maybe I could say, Charlene, I want my arms to look like yours. Can
Exactly.
you help me make my arms look like yours? So that's a competition,
But I
I'm
do
not
see what you're saying.
envy.
Where,
The word is envy, right? If we're envious of somebody else.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
that's that's to
But
me,
I
that's
do
or
see your
jealous
point,
or
and I don't
whatever.
want to take away from your point by no means. I do see what you're saying, that there's healthy ways to compare to other people.
we level up sometimes by comparing.
Yeah. Right. Like if
You
you're
know.
like, am I doing this? Well, I could be doing better. I mean, this person's doing great. I could step up. Or
Exactly.
like I look at you and I'm like, every time I see you, I'm motivated. I'm like, I
Yeah,
need
I
to get
need
back
to-
in that gym
Yeah.
and start
that's
eating
good.
healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I compare myself to you, but in a way that where I'm inspired.
because
so
you
I
trust
totally get
yourself
what
that
you're
you
saying.
could do it. Same thing with the other things. I see. I'm like, if I wanted that, I could have that.
But I think, again,
yeah.
that's the self-love thing.
Right.
If I am comparing myself, is it a reflection of self-love, or am I beating myself up? So I think it all starts with what the intention is, what's in
And
your
the
heart
emotion
first,
behind
and the
it.
emotion behind
Yeah,
it.
for sure.
Because comparison to be inspired, like there could be girls watching and, well, we're going to do our own little podcast show, and I think that's beautiful. Or we're going to talk about this or whatever. So yes. So I'm going to move on to our
But there's
last
none
two.
like this right here. Just so you know.
Saying, because you know why? Because we're one of a kind, ladies.
right.
Hello.
There you go. Yours
Not
will be,
comparing
yours
ourselves
will
to
be
anyone else.
just better.
Yeah.
L'Oreal, where you at? Lipstick ladies. Okay, so don't be afraid of.
I got that.
Okay, so
Cover girl.
don't be afraid. Now we've talked about this, so we can make this a really, really short one. But we've actually kind of talked about this over the last couple episodes when we were talking about fake friends and eliminate toxic relationships. But it says a form of self-love would be to not be afraid of letting go of toxic people. And here's what I think about this. I think sometimes, or often, at least for my own personal experience, is when you're with people who are toxic, they're not bad people, right? It's just the dynamics of the two of you together sometimes create that toxic environment. And you get sometimes in your mind that you're going to fix them or help them, or they're going to change and you're going to be the change for the change, and he's going to help me change or she's going to help me change or whatever it is. But it's just toxic and it's tumultuous and it never ends. And I think when we're loving ourselves, there comes a period of time when we're saying, this is not serving me. And by the way, I am not even serving this person. We're like chasing a dog chasing a tail in these relationships. And I got to love myself enough to say enough and to kind of exit out and not it be something mean towards the other person or whatever. It's just a matter of like, I love myself to say that I just want different.
It's an ending. And what makes it toxic? Like sometimes we see things as toxic because we're toxic.
Absolutely.
Well,
or
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think everybody has it in them. I think everybody has it in them to be in some type of toxic relationship, whether it's manipulation
or you see the
whether it's
truth in someone else
gaslighting.
and they're trying to be somebody else and you're like, dude, I know, don't even, but you got to, you respect them enough not to call them out in front of others. It's that kind of thing too. I mean, there's so many levels.
But I think,
to that.
I mean, there's one thing, guy. I think toxic is when it becomes draining and depleting. And I think when you don't like who you are in the friendship
Yes.
or the relationship or whatever.
You said it right there. When
Yeah.
you don't like
I
who
think
you
when you're
are.
chipped away and you feel empty at some point, or you're like, again, you're not getting anywhere, there's no growth. It's the same. You're kind of like looped into
Stagnant,
this
yeah.
like loop. I call what, press pause, rewind, plus play. Press pause, rewind. When it becomes that and it drains you and your energy and your sense of being, it's toxic, right? But sometimes we stay in it thinking and hoping, and
Fear
we
of
think
missing
that's
out.
loving, that what we're doing is like, no, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, or I'm loving this person, or I'm trying, and we beat ourselves up. And the reality is sometimes you got to love yourself enough to say, I'm walking away,
and trust that.
and trust it.
Yes.
In fairness,
Yes.
a lot of people they'll lose themselves so much in toxic relationships to where it almost seems like something that they can't. They just physically
can't see it.
see an out
Yes.
because they've
That would be a
depended
great
so
talk.
much on. I know I was going to say, can we end it here because of time? And
Yeah,
then
we're going
we
to end
could-
it there because
pick
that
it
would be a
back up.
great talk on
Mhm.
toxic
Mhm.
relationships and getting out. Because exactly what you said, sometimes you're so sucked in.
Mhm.
It becomes such a part of the cycle and the habits. And there's a great book that I'll reference as well on that. So before we go, the last thing I want to talk about with self-love is actually going to be our segment into our first 3-part series, which will be battling your insecurities. We're actually hosting, my dear friend Carmen over here will be hosting a topics party. We have some beautiful, lovely ladies. We're actually going to invite some guests to be in the 4th chair here in the studio.
Exciting.
Get another woman's perspective. And we're battling the topic of insecurity. So we're going to get together at the party, have it out, have fun, drinks, laugh, have a good time, but really talk about insecurities. And we're going to make this a 3-part series. So you're definitely do not want to miss this topic on insecurity. I think we all can relate. And to have a couple guest ladies on the
And
show as
that's
well.
July 26th, I believe, right?
That's your
when
show,
we-
July 20. Oh, yeah. So your topics party will be July 26th.
No,
or
the show will be the
show.
26th.
Yeah. So we'll get that going on the 26th of July. So thank you guys again, ladies. How do we want to conclude this self-love before we say goodbye?
Just give
Just
yourself
real
a
quick.
big ol' hug.
Yes.
Oh, hug.
That one song
Buy
comes up in
flowers.
my mind. Remember that One Love? One, I think it's
Sing it,
E40.
girl.
Get it.
Remember that One Love song? You guys gotta know what
Charlene,
I'm
you
talking
have
about,
to
right?
reference the right song.
Well, come
You're
on,
gonna
you know.
be talking about
Sing
this.
the
But we
song.
love you,
Only
though.
one love, something like that.
Okay,
But anyways,
next week,
that
next
one.
week, next
That's the
So,
song.
listen.
Yeah.
If you can't, there's a thing that it says, self-love will solve all your effing problems. And it's true. If you love yourself and pour into yourself, life just looks different. It really does. So we'll see you next time. And thank you guys again for watching.
Light and love, people. Bye.
Okay.